Welcome everyone. I'm Everton de Oliveira, Professor Agua, founding member of the Groundwater project. We currently have more than 400 renowned authors writing high quality textbooks that will be distributed for free at our website and have been downloaded in more than 240 countries. Thank you very much for participating. Our books are not only free, they are also available for translations to anyone who is interested in volunteering for it. So please volunteer. We have already more than 350 volunteers from around 50 countries and more than 30 languages. Yes, we today are about 40 languages. Be part of this noble initiative and help bringing groundwater education to your home country in your own language. That's very important. Visit our website, please. So on behalf of the Groundwater project, I would like to thank all of you for making groundwater visible. This is our second edition of this event, Making Groundwater Visible, and we tell invisible stories about groundwater. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Share our posts and like them, please. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your help is very important. Your participation will help give the importance that groundwater deserves. Today's sessions is about an important thing. It's about live and let live. Groundwater, the secret agent. And we have the pleasure to bring to you, we have here Arjun Swaminathan, documentary photographer and filmmaker making visual stories of rural and tribal areas and the founder of Native Picture. With an incredible sensitivity, he produced videos about communities in Africa, the most incredible I've ever seen. So don't miss it. Visit his channel and you'll be impressed and you'll love what he's doing. And also we have Roberto Roche. Roche is a Brazilian specialist in environmental, social, and governance in Equator principles, PRI and IFC standards for infrastructure investments. Over the years, he has consolidated his experience in various positions until he reached the vice presidency in ESG, KSMSRS, and corporate sustainability for investment funds in Africa and Asia, with a strong presence in the areas of oil and gas, energy, ports, and mining, in more than 15 countries in Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Middle East. He knows the world for sure. He's author of articles on sustainability, environmental management, environmental emergency crisis management, perception and analysis of socioeconomic risks. He is a counselor of CONAMA 2008, social environment expert of the Federal Public Attorney here in Brazil, and mentor and career advisor in QHSCRS and sustainability. Wow, what an impressive career those two have, and we'll have fun talking to them. But before their presentation, we would like to thank our sponsors. Without them, this noble endeavor would not be possible. Please, consider sponsoring our project. Make a donation. Every help counts because the world needs water, groundwater. Our sponsors are G360, Hydroplan in Brazil, TDS, Hardvark, ACOM, Equanti, Bluemetric, C3 Group, Well Water Services, GeoEnviro Pro, Golder, GSI Environmental, KGS Group, MTE, Solinst, Princeton Groundwater, SS Papadopoulos, Waterloo Barrier, Aqua Insight, Ken Pipe, Conran Well Drilling, Synergel, and our supporters are Hydrogeologists Without Borders, Instituto Água Sustentável in Brazil, Water Research Commission, and GSSA. So thank you all guys for helping us and participating in our project. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you, everybody. Now we're going to start bringing Arjun to you. Thank you. Welcome, Arjun. Have your presentation, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello all. So today while we are talking about groundwater, like Everton said, this is the most invisible thing that we have in our world, and something we can quite easily take for granted. And over time, the usage of groundwater has, gone up exponentially, from irrigation to drinking water and other commercial purposes in factories, etc. So today, what my talk will be is about our faith and groundwater, right? And we know that for centuries, people have been worshiping the elements. So it is the fire, water, wind, earth is what people have been worshiping. And over time, the idea changed and we became more and more commercial. We became more capitalist. We became more materialistic as we move forward. And that indigenous knowledge or that way of thinking changed. And today we have come to a point where we are fighting something which is right there in front of our faces, which is climate change. And we are having conferences over conferences across the world, people flying in and out. But I don't know how much that is helping. So what I will do today is take you to a little hilly place in the southern part of India. Okay. So today I'm going to take you to a little hilly place in the southern part of India. That place is called the Nilgiris. It's a part of the Western Ghats that runs from central India down to the southern tip. So it's run across the western coast. So quickly, let me share my screen and away we go. So that little part you see is called the Nilgiris. It's a hilly region and home to several tribal communities. And that space, the Nilgiris region, is a biosphere. UNESCO has declared this region as the Nilgiris as a bioreserve. So you will find the endangered species of birds, animals around this region, and of course the flora and fauna. Now, over time, what has happened because of the number of tourists that get attracted to this place, because it's a hill station, and the summer months is when there is the most pressure for this region, to take in tourists. There is a huge pressure on the natural resources. And when we talk about natural resources, we're talking about water, we're talking about the forests, we're talking about, of course, the air. All of that slowly is getting polluted. So here we talk about the people who have lived in this region for centuries. So we're talking about the tribal communities who have lived here and the tribal communities who have been worshipping the elements. But over time, like I said, there has been pressure of development. So this is the Nativities Biosphere, just a photograph, which kind of extrapolated to what the entire region looks like. And in the 19th century, British found this place and they were very excited about this. And they're like, this region is very similar to the place where we come from. So they wanted to replicate their homeland here. So what did they do? They brought in eucalyptus, they brought in wattle, they brought in all these invasive species that were not native to this region. They brought in tea because they wanted to enjoy tea sitting in this hilly region. So there are massive tea plantations that exist even today. And as time passed, the British left, the independent India continued what was left of by the British. So the eucalyptus and the wattle and the silver oak trees were continued to be planted. And the reason why they were planted is to make sure that it became a very productive region. So it could boost the paper industry. So whatever native species of trees that there were disappeared or were not planted as much. So in the process, the amount of water that could get percolated into the soil reduced. And then the pressure of tourism. So you see the agricultural lands that have been, the forests have been cleared for agricultural lands, homestays and hotels. That's what started happening in this space. So when we talk about farming, the people started going towards commercial farming. So they wanted to grow these exotic vegetables, the Mediterranean vegetables, which were zucchinis, broccolis, lettuce, and all of that. So that again added more stress to that region because those species are not native to that area. So you see a farmer here harvesting his zucchini, and to grow his zucchini, he has to make sure that he applies enough chemical fertilizers. So again, the soil health reduces. It becomes a compact cake. Again, the percolation, the rainwater does not seep in to the ground. So in between all of this, what are the tribal people doing? These people are also the people who have been living there for years. But because of the pressure of the markets, this has changed. So what are the people who are living in that tiny valleys of this hilly area doing? They still are keeping their faith. They're keeping their faith in the elements, what I had mentioned earlier. So this is one tribal community plus. They live in the valleys. Traditionally, they have been hunter-gatherers. And now they go harvest honey in the forests, right? And they do subsistence farming. So this is a farmer who is growing millets and enough to make sure that he has it for his home and family and probably his little community. So they work on terrace farming on this part. And as you travel around that region, the entire Nilgiris region, you will find these little temples. Now, at first I was curious as to why are there so many temples? What are these temples doing here? Then as I began to explore and start speaking to people, I realized that more often than not, these temples were next to a spring. Can you see a spring on the left-hand side here? You see that water? It was next to a spring. So these people had a great connection. They built a connection between the god and groundwater. So as we know, spring is something where rainwater gets percolated into the aquifer, and then the excess of that water comes out as the springs, right? So all of these springs is where the tribal people would have these little temples, and that is where they build their faith as to how to protect that sacred water of theirs. So Kamala here is praying to Lord Ranganatha. And this temple, as you can see, is right next to that little spring. And she says that, there's no point of having a temple without water or water without temple. Both are as important. So they clearly know that their survival is because of the spring water. And thankfully, they are teaching their younger generations to take care of it. Right? So they are taking care of it so well that the little hamlets that is around this hamlet come there and get access to this spring water. She's very clear that without water there is no God, and there is no water without God. So they are interconnected. So that faith remains. We are not talking about religion here. It's about a faith. It's about worshiping that natural element, which is groundwater, which we so often consider invisible. So often consider it invisible and an infinite resource, while it is as finite as it can be. So this man here is called Nangan. And he is the priest of that temple that you saw. Right? And he says, before every agricultural season, they take the seeds and the agricultural implements, wash it with that spring water, take the blessings of Lord Ranganatha, and then go farming. So that is how important it is, for them to protect that groundwater. While we, as urbanites who have lost complete connect with our nature, just see it as a commodity. We want to make use of it as much as we can. The tourism industry wants to make use of it as much as it wants to, right? This space, this indigenous learning, this indigenous faith that is there across the world, in South America, Africa, and in India, and of course, lots of, and of course, many parts of Asia. We have to get back to that if we have to combat climate change, if we have to protect our natural resources. Otherwise, it's just we quite clearly can see a very bleak future. It would be great to see, families as these, to, who can walk through the spring water. So, yeah, so this is the Nilgiris sphere, and at the back, you see the lake again, which is filled by the spring water that we see. So, any questions?
Wow,
Perfect.
I like it a lot. I'm well impressed with your presentation. Very, very touching. Very touching and very interesting. I would like to bring Roberto first, and then we can question you and we can talk about it. Is that okay? Roberto, please.
Yep.
Your turn.
Okay, here we go. Well, I didn't have any presentation at all. I was thinking to talk about my experience with the conflict areas around the world after spending 20 years in Africa, a couple works in India, in Pune, but not with water at all. But I would like to share, if it's possible here, this picture. I can't let pass through that. Let's see here, first of all. Okay, that's a transitional area from the mountains from Ethiopia to the desert of Ethiopia to the frontier of Somalia. This lady has a son on his right, she's carrying. He has a handicap, he can't walk, okay? And she was going to sell this guava, in Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese is mandioca, but in Africa is guava. She used to walk 15 kilometers every day to bring a bucket of water from the river. This caught my attention because she has to carry his son 15 kilometers and every day to the river near, by the way, a lake and a river near Hawassa, and bring the son and a bucket of the water that she needs for her use at home. And if she could sell her guava, good. If not, she would bring back again and sell the next day. What's the point here? After working like 20 years in Africa, the last 10 years in areas like South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia, this was common to see. Those people need badly underwater technology to bring this water to them, looking for someone to come to this area to bring water for them, and bring technology, bring education, how to use that water that you're gonna bring from undergrounds. That's the reality of almost 1 billion persons around the world. They have to walk 15, 20 kilometers for a bucket or anything that can bring water to daily use. So for following the instructions or the notice from UN, every 5 minutes a child walks to bring water, go back and forth, she loses, for example, 2 or 3 years of learning on school. And everything we're talking about here is water, in the importance of to go for underground water, okay, to bring to these people because they need it very badly. Besides the situation that we can see here, besides the situation that is very difficult to bring water to these people, we have a lot of war conflicts. As the expert says, the next third war is going to be for the water, not for oil or anything at all. But the truth is, this war already started. I can see from my own eyes, warlords, 16 years old warlords with AK-47, okay, putting a price for a bucket of water for this lady with his son handicapped to bring a bucket of water. She has to pay. So at the moment we bring technology to them, we set up, okay, a technical project based on bringing this underground water to them. Again, the warlords would came and take over and not decide to ask for a price. So the war for water is already there for many, many years. Underground water is there. Okay, it's difficult, it's salty, there's technology for that. The company I was working for, we brought for them. We teach them. But the warlords, the government, didn't like at all because they didn't have what? The power of controlling the water. We saw now what happened there and was very well explained for Arjun. In that situations are very common, not around Africa. I worked a couple of years in Mongolia and Gobi deserts. We had the same problem there. Okay, in South Africa, it's not different. In Kenya, it's not different. Okay, in Brazil, here, up northwest, it's not different. But the thing is, why don't you use the technology? Why don't give education for those people, for those families that only can carry or only they're gonna use a bucket of water of 2, 3, 4 liters for cooking, bathing, cleaning, whatever? This opportunity here to talk to Professor Everton, Arjun, and the Institute is to bring the conscience of understanding mind that we can solve these problems. We can take care of this problem, but we need help. We need to bring the government, we need to bring the people, the mind consciously fully that people are dying for not having access to water. And the solution is taking care of water. The solution is bringing underground water from the aquifers and help this population have a better quality of life. That's what I would like to say here, the opportunity to share my experience. This lady here, after we set up our Grace Browns for access to underground water from the aquifer, like in Hawassa, okay, she didn't have to walk 15 kilometers every day, back and forth, 30 kilometers to bring a bucket of water. We help them. We have a community to them. We help a tribe. We have, doesn't matter the religion, doesn't matter which country was it, but people from Somalia used to come to take this water from wells. We have problem with warlords, no doubt. We have problem with the government, no doubt. Who has water in this area has power. So when they have power, they have to decide their life. They have to decide, they have to put a price. In our company, not only our company, other companies that there are developing projects over there, they put wells for the community. So we have to face all this problem. And what we think about that? Simple. those people need help. Over there, what solved the problem? I don't know. I have been there for 4 years now. 3 years, by the way. But another areas in the country, even in my country here in Brazil, up northwest, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, South Africa, Gobi, where I'm working for, I solved this problem. And now I saw these things about water springs in India, very well being brought by Arjun. The conscious mind is very important to us to achieve a better quality of life for those people's air. Bring conscience, bring the mindfulness that we need to do something. And thanks for the Institute to bring me here to listen to my colleague, very well done presentation, to bring my experience and share with you what I have been seeing these 20 years in working in Africa and projects in very projects. Thank you, Professor Apple.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Thank you, Arjun. So now I would like to come back. You both presented important, touching stories. I have a question to start with you both. Arjun, you brought culture. You brought culture when you see people that have tradition related to the groundwater. They build temples around groundwater. That's because their families, their ancestors use that. And then, as I know, you've been working in many other places in India. You also have places where you don't have as much water, right? And you have problems. So how can we work around culture and water scarcity? Because when we try to bring, like Roberto mentioned, we have to introduce tools and technology, and that's not always this is close to the culture. How do you see that for us to get around this problem, solving but not being too aggressive to the nature? Arjun, please.
The problem has always been markets. Now, when you look at, if you remember, when one of our earlier conversations that we had is in the dryland areas, we are growing sugarcane, which is a water-intensive crop. We will grow paddy, which again is a water-intensive crop. Now, what we are letting go of is the indigenous knowledge. It is that knowledge of growing native species, native seeds, native crops to that region. So a dryland area will grow millets. You have, varieties of millets where it does not require that much, water, not as much as the sugarcane crop would require. But the farmers, they see, oh, there is a good market there, I can get my money. So they will grow that. So it is not, their mistake. But the problem is they are not getting benefited by growing something else. So that is what we need to look at. So when we talk about culture, the millet growing communities, the tribal communities who, in Orissa or, Chhattisgarh or, different parts of the country, there is a certain culture to it. So once the millets are harvested, there is worshipping of a certain god. They offer those millets to the god before they, send it out to the market or they consume. So if you remember, there was one photograph of a man who was, working on his millet, on his millets, right? On his millet farm. So I made a photograph of him, and then I wanted to get closer, to get a close-up. And as I was walking towards him, he said, "Stop, do not come." For a minute, I was taken aback. I was like, "Why? Why should I not come closer?" He said, "Please remove your shoes and then enter the field." So for him, that field was sacred. That field where he was growing millets was sacred. So there was a culture to it. So I had to remove my shoes and then get closer to him and make a couple of photographs. We are losing that in the process of, of running behind markets. So as a policy, we need to start addressing things where we work on native, solutions, native crops, native seeds. We are selling out to these large corporations, which is not going to help. The more we do that, the more stress on groundwater.
Roberto, you worked on that. He has a point there. You've been working with ESG. How companies can face this problem if you have this experience, that we can work with the local culture and we can use the local groundwater for people and make the best use of that, because the companies are basically the market or close to the market. How can we get this through ESG? Do you see a way out of this problem using today's thinking?
When it comes to ESG, we are talking about the risk of financial of the projects. So when water is material to the business, is very important to the business, comes to attention to take care and pay attention of the risk of no water for the production. Okay, let's give an example. Agriculture needs a lot of water every day. So it's a risk for a company that sells their crops. So when it comes to that point, and ESG matters, no doubt that someone on the company is going to be aware of taking care of the water. So because it's very important for the production. So the major concern for them is, let's go to the area of there is a lot of water, a river, community. So we're going to pick up this water, okay, and use in our crops, in our plantation. But we have to take care of that, because we don't have that water anymore. Millions of dollars is going to vaporize if you don't take care. So in the ESG, every project considers what's very important for their project as we say, materiality, okay, to the business. And if water is important, is very major concern for the continuity of the business, we gonna do, okay, what? Take care of the forest, take care of everything to keep that water coming. It's a matter of groundwater, the same thing. If you're gonna use the groundwater, and in Brazil, we are using already groundwater, for example, as we use in Africa, but in Africa, we use for small plantations. Here, Brazil is feeding the world. Everyone knows that. We feed the world right now with animal protein and vegetable proteins, okay? We feed it, but we need a lot of water. So when it comes to ESG for these big, huge companies, plantations, okay, farms, let's put it like this, not plantations, water is the main risk business.
How do you see that, Arjun? Is there a conflict? Because in India, India is very likely the country that uses most groundwater in the world, right? So you have learned things, and you've seen, you, Arjun, as a photographer that is concerned about that, you've seen things that many people are not aware of, right?
Sorry, before Arjun, sorry. There is a case, I don't remember when was it, probably Arjun already know that a factory of Coca-Cola factory in India draw the wells, and India asked to leave that place. I don't remember when was it, but I heard that in water management seminar somewhere, and because Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola, she's cleaning the world, that's what she says. But when I heard that she was kicked off of India because she draw all the wells that's where the factory was. I was surprised. How come? Not gonna blame anyone. How come allowed to that happens? Sorry, Arjun. I remember that, you know.
This happened in the southern state of India, Kerala, where Coca-Cola was drawing excessive groundwater, and the community there came up, protested, stopped, and made sure Coca-Cola was out of that place. So, if we have to take that example, what the people today are doing is the corporates and several NGOs and also the trade organizations are sitting in cities very far off from wherever the policy has to be implemented, or wherever the work has to happen, or wherever the intervention has to happen, and they make ideas or projects sitting in their cozy AC chamber. But the problem is they are not in consultation with the community. We have to first get the community on board. Then we will get to understand. Now, if the Irula community is on board, then we understand the importance of that spring water that they have. So I can, understand, or that culture gets rubbed off onto my intervention. So I cannot sit somewhere and then, dictate projects or policies to people. So there is a large disconnect there that has to be closed. That gap has to be closed. Because at the end of it is these people who, like the Irulas and other tribal people who are living in those areas, they are the custodians of those, and we are using up their water. I go to the Nilgiris area for a holiday for 4 days or 5 days, and I make sure that I use all the resources, and I just come back into my city. But it is those people who actually live there and later are going to suffer the consequences of my visit. So that understanding is what needs to be brought about, that we are connected. What happens here can happen there. The effects can be felt in the other place.
I agree. Roberto, you want to say something?
No, perfectly his point. And thanks for remembering. What was the name again? The name of the city? Which year was that? Of the Coca-Cola factory?
This was in the state Kerala. I think it was it was in the mid 2010s. I think I would have to look it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
because it's very emblematic, this case, because in Brazil we are already start doing this because climate things. I'm not going to discuss this here right now, but we have factories in Brazil that closed this year because they have no water. So everyone is digging a groundwater. In Curitiba, where I live, every expensive condoms are looking for groundwater. Everyone is going underground, And so things like this fact of Coca-Cola happened that I was a long time ago, heard about them. Now I have the information, Kerala around 2010. Perfect. I'm going to use that on my speech sometimes, to call their attention because everyone is digging a well now. Everyone is digging a well in Brazil because of water. And look, we are the country blessed by rivers. Too bad that we didn't care about our rivers. I think everyone should look the documentary of Arjun, it's very impressive. That's the truth. Very impressive. I'm very emotive for those things, After 20 years in Africa, working Pune, as I said, but not water, in biomass projects, to generate electricity. I'm very touched with those things. And Brazil is not different from any country. As much as I say Brazil feeds the world, it's true. But what price we're going to pay for that? And what Arjun just showed us, what the Institute is bringing, that's mind conscious, that we have to start sitting around. Brazil has a lot of water. Yes. We have a lot of rivers. Yes. But what quality of this water? And those big plantations, big farms that we have in Brazil, huge. You can imagine Arjun drive 2 hours, 3 hours inside of a soy farm. That's very common in Brazil. Driving, asphalt, 2-3 hours, soy, corn. There's not many rivers, to add that. So people are going to ground the waters. That's what's going to happen.
So in the process, like you say, soy and maize, here, a lot of places, it's very similar. So we are losing the diversity of our cropping system as well. So when we lose the diversity of our cropping system and go for monocrops, that is where we have to use excess groundwater to keep feeding it, because we want to keep the soil wet. There needs to be moisture in the soil. That doesn't seem to happen, right? So So all of this gets interconnected. So coming back to another point where, you spoke about people drilling bore wells, in these huge buildings and condos and factories. Now, government needs to come in here and say that when you drill a bore well, you also have to have a groundwater recharge space.
That's
perfect,
right?
Not cement everything.
Yes, so you have to have a groundwater recharge area. So once that happens, so people can okay, so this is what I have to do. So when they can bring in laws for all kinds of things, this is something which is as critical as it can get.
That's true. Very, very well pointed. Very well pointed.
Yes. Like all those temples that you've shown there, they will be gone if you have groundwater extraction around the area. They're gonna go dry, right?
Think about it. There'll be no water to baptize.
Yep. Exactly. So it'll be it's a cultural crime. It's not only lack of water, it's a cultural crime as well, because that hurts the country, hurts the community. That is quite important. So what we see here is that it's not only the physical, and the economical value of water. It's way more than that, right? Because water is in our lives and it's in our culture. So we have to think, and we have to find ways of managing water, and groundwater is a major part of water in the world, where we can take care of the physical aspects of the water, plus all the culture that lies with it, right? So what would you suggest? Because we're working, and most of our viewers are hydrogeologists, and most of them are very concerned, and they know a lot about the value of water and how to solve chemical and physical problems. But the social problems are not so close yet to the culture, that we bring to universities and to people. We're just prepared for producing more water and see where the water is and bring it up to the surface. So what is your suggestion?
I don't have suggestions because it's not my field of expertise, but I am a testimony of a social or environmental social refugees. It's happening around the world. I can see a lot of places that I've been working to, people that left the area, that left their hometown because of lack of water. It come to the cities. So we have already a lot of millions of people that we call social environmental refugees because of lack of water. the solution, sorry, I don't have the technology idea. I just saw with my own eyes the huge problem that people are not aware because they still open that sink water there. They have water on their bathrooms. They have water in the shower, so they are not worried about. But spend a month without water, that's running water from tap water, whatever, and see the problem it is. But sorry, I don't know what is the solution for that.
Arjun, please.
This is a bit far-fetched, but I think we have to go back to our indigenous knowledge. They know how conservation works, because our idea of conservation is based on, certain methods, certain Western technology, certain science, and which that science which has dismissed, the knowledge of the indigenous people. They know how to conserve. So we have to look back into it and try to get an understanding of what it is, what water is, what trees are, what a forest is. How do I eat healthy? What is sustainable food? So all of that plays a role in this. We have to tap into the indigenous knowledge systems. We need to understand the cropping patterns. We need to understand the usage of water, how to conserve lakes, how to conserve spring water. So all of those come into picture. So once we know that, once we promote or encourage that, then we are in a better position to, live a lot longer than what we expect.
Thank you, guys. Our time is up here. Today we had this very, very important talk, and we see that even when we talk with people that are working their lives with that, we still don't have, clear solutions for things, because the solutions are depending on culture, local culture, and solutions that take care of all the environment and the social problems that are related to it. So we need to be very careful on how we use groundwater. When you buy food, you have to think on how this food was being produced, or where the water came to that food. Was that really, sustainable? So we have to find ways of thinking on the best way to use water, and use groundwater, because most food in the world is based on groundwater irrigation. Okay, so as Arjun mentioned, it's not only taking water from the ground. You have to make sure that water is put back.
Comes back.
We're going to dry our lands, and we will have no solutions. So our idea here today was to bring you two different views, but you see that the views converge. One person, Arjun is an artist with a very good eye for the social problem. So is Roberto. He's a technician and he works with companies, but he also has an eye for the social problems. So we all share the same goals. So let's make the best of us and see if we can make the world a better place for all of us. Thank you very much, Arjun. Thank you very much, Roberto, for your very nice presentation. It was a pleasure having you. Very touching. And we'll get back to you soon. Thank you very much. We would like to thank you then.
Thank you.
We would like to thank you, all of you, for participating. Please help us making groundwater visible by following us on social media, sharing with your friends and foes. Distribute our material, help translate our books and publications to your own language, and consider making a donation. We are not a not-for-profit organization that depends on you. We'd like to thank you again to all our sponsors and our invitees here that made a very nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.